Welcome back to the Dragon's Lair. My name is Wade, and this is my show Let's Talk, where I talk about 40k. Now I'm talking about Tyranids. Go ahead and look at some of my other videos. There's a playlist where I talk about Necrons. There's a playlist where I talk about Rogue Trader tournaments. And then I have a completely other show called Only Lore. Only Lore! In the grim dark of the 41st millennium, there's only lore. Anyways, let's get into it. We're talking about the Haruspex, which I feel is a unsung powerhouse of the Tyranids right now. So let's get into it, and I'll tell you why I like a Haruspex. I like a Haruspex because movement 8 is pretty good. You know, you're going to be moving around terrain, especially in the RTT format. That's going to be a big obstacle for you. And getting to your opponent and being able to charge your opponent is always going to be a problem because monsters can't move through buildings. Obviously, you can fit inside of any rubber banded base of a building that you can fit inside, but you can't move through the walls, which is a huge problem for us. I wish there was a stratagem or something, but there isn't, and that's where we're at. Tough 11. This kind of sets apart the Haruspex from a lot of the other things, like a Screamer Killer, for example, which I just did a video on. Check that out. Tough 11 is pretty good. 3+ save, not great. You know, it's kind of easy to take cover and things like that to give you a +1, because being so big and buildings would block and such and thus. But it's not great. Kind of makes up for it a little bit with the toughness. 14 wounds. 14 wounds feels like a lot. It's not. You'll get melted, but the 14 wounds will help you survive, hopefully long enough to get a little closer and get that good Haruspex damage, because it's the mechanics of the Haruspex, it's the numbers of the Haruspex that work out so well. And if you need a close combat monster, I think they're still at 125 points right now at the making of this video. They're a good cost. That might not be accurate, but I think that's where they're at. Leadership 8 is not great. Most things you see is a leadership of 7. It's not a Synapse creature, but that's just what you're stuck with. Obviously, if you put a Synapse creature with it, you're rolling your leadership on 3d6. 8 on 3d6 is pretty good, but that's the way the Synapse mechanic works. Objective Control 4 is okay. You're probably going to want something else. If you're looking to take an objective, you're probably going to want something else there to pump your numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. Got to pump those numbers up. But he's good at his job. Okay, and what is his job? His job is hungry hippos. Is mowing down. So take a look at that grasping tongue, range 12, which is pretty decent after you move 8, which means, you know, you got like a 20-inch move, kind of move and shoot. His base is so big that kind of changes the world a little bit. Precision. So keep in mind with this, you're able to target leaders. You're able to target people who are leading a unit, who are hiding inside the unit. You only get 1 attack with it. Ballistic skill 3, pretty okay. Strength 6 is usually going to be all you need to put a wound on a leader character type person. AP 2 is pretty good, so odds are you're wounding on a 3 or a 4 there, you know, which is pretty good. And then D6 + 1, which is really good damage for shooting one particular dude, like a leader dude. So like, you know, a lot of those guys have 4 wounds or 5 wounds or something like that. So you're pretty likely to murder that guy, which is just great because the imagery of the tongue shooting out and grabbing the guy out of the unit and then eating him. And I liked it more when Haruspex is healed or had the ability to heal. Keep in mind he's a harvester, so in the assimilation swarm, that is a possibility for you, but only in assimilation swarm. I am shooting all these videos from the perspective of Invasion Fleet. Melee combat is where he shines. So the grasping tongue, in my opinion, is just a fun, playful little thing. But Ravenous Maw, 14 attacks. 14 attacks is crazy. Weapon skill 3, pretty good. It's the good side of average. Strength 7. So it's good at, guardsmen. It'll double shot guardsmen, fire warriors, aspect warriors. um, it's not gonna double tough Marines. So you're gonna have a 3 against Marines, which is not bad. AP1, which is good because AP1 is good, 2 is gooder, 3 is goodest. And anything above 3 is really good. Is super good. 2 damage. So you could kill some Marines in there with the 14 attacks. Keep in mind with Invasion Fleet, if you choose Swarming Instincts, you're going to have sustained hits 1. So for every 6 you roll to hit, you will get an additional hit. You're going to get additional hits. So you'll gulp up Guardsmen. I mean, just left and right. And you'll get Marine kills with it. Now, let's remember the Shoveling Claws. So Shoveling Claws are extra attacks. So you get your 14 Ravenous Maw attacks, and then you get your 4 Shoveling Claw attacks. One thing that I want to encourage you is, obviously, this kind of sounds a little silly to say, but know your army. Read, especially if you're going to go to a tournament or something like that, read ahead. Try to memorize as much as you can. I've tried to make different aids before in the past. And honestly, nothing as good as a aid that I've found as Army Builder on your phone. Or, a roster builder or whatever. They're not always perfect, but for recalling things, because here's my point. I went to an RTT and nobody knew what Tyranids did. And I pride myself on trying to be honest and trying to be right and correct and follow the rules as good as I can and as closely as I can. But a lot of people didn't know anything about Tyranids. And so if you attack with your Ravenous Maw, then you go to attack with your Shoveling Claws, someone's going to be like, well, you already attacked with all your melee weapons because you chose your Ravenous Maw. Well, you get extra attacks from Shoveling Claws. Anyways, 4 attacks, which is pretty good. Weapon skill 3, which is the best side of average. Strength 14. Here's where you start ripping apart vehicles, which is part of the strength of the Haruspex. It's good price, it's high wounds, it's high toughness, and one of our best options against vehicles. We don't have great guns against vehicles, but we have Haruspexes against vehicles. Haruspexes can fight a ton of small guys well, is okay at elite infantry, and is good at vehicles. Strength 14. Strength 14, you're going to be handing tanks their face. You're going to be handing dreadnoughts their face. And you got to be able to do that. You have to have a how do I handle a dreadnought? How do I handle a land raider? So strength 14, you're going to be handing those guys their faces. And probably the only thing that's going to out-tough you is a super heavy, Shadow Sword or a Bane Blade or a Tesseract Vault or something like that. AP2 is really good. D6 plus 1 damage is really good. So, powerhouse there. Deadly Demise, keep in mind it triggers if you die, and then you roll a d6 and you get a 6. Faction Synapse means you can benefit from Synapse. Grizzly Spectacle is kind of cool. Every time this model is selected to fight, after resolving its attacks, if one or more enemy units were destroyed, one or more enemy units were destroyed by those attacks, each enemy unit within 6 inches of this model must take a battle shock test. So you have to kill the whole unit, like a whole unit of guardsmen. Another thing that's good is that you can basically use any stratagem in the invasion fleet on him. Rapid regeneration is great because it's going to help him stay alive. I really like the Adrenal Surge for him because the Adrenal Surge is going to make things like Swarming Instincts proc on a 5 or a 6. Adrenal Surge is 2 CP, so keep that in mind. Death Frenzy is really good because if the enemy kills him before he's had a chance to fight, he can still fight with Death Frenzy, and that can really change a lot of things up. I like the Haruspex. I look forward to using them more and more. I have 2. And keep in mind you can magnetize it and make it into an exocrine. I've really enjoyed sharing this with you guys. We here at the Dragon's Lair understand that you could spend your time anywhere, so we want to say thank you for spending your time here with us at the Dragon's Lair.